Protect us from the cold winter winds. That's the miracle of trees. You plant one now, it'll make a world of difference later. Make a difference on the street where you live. Join me and plant a tree. Trees for America.
Support Tree City USA, where
Protect us from the cold winter winds. That's the miracle of trees. You plant one now, it'll make a world of difference later. Make a difference on the street where you live. Join me and plant a tree. Trees for America.
support Tree City USA, where you live. For more information, write the National Arbor Day Foundation, Nebraska City, Nebraska. Join me and plant a tree.
In 1981, one man declared war on the #1 killer of teenagers, drinking and driving. Bob Anastas left his job as a high school hockey and football coach to start an organization called SADD, S-A-D-D. Today, because of what one man began, Students Against Driving Drunk is a nationwide force, an army of students, several million strong, all responsibly committed to eliminating their #1 killer, drinking and driving. Today, it's a fact. The number of teenage deaths related to drinking and driving is dropping across the nation. This public service announcement has been brought to you by SADD, Students Against Driving Drunk. For more information on how you can join the battle against drinking and driving, write to Bob Anastas, in care of SADD, Post Office Box 800, Marlborough, Massachusetts, 01752. We're winning the war, but we still need your help.
Hi, everyone. This is Alex Trebek. Do you miss reading memorable writing from print magazines because of blindness or other handicap? If so, Choice Magazine Listening, a service of the nonprofit Lucerna Fund, will send you special speed cassettes with 8 hours of unabridged selections from your favorite magazines, 6 times yearly, completely free of charge. Yes, that's right, it's free, and it includes the writings of such authors as John McPhee, Margaret Atwood, Russell Baker, Bill Moyers, Garrison Keillor, and many others. So if you're blind or unable to read regular print, or you know someone with this problem, write Listening, Box 10, Port Washington, New York, 11050. We'll also tell you how to get the special 4-track cassette player, provided free by the Library of Congress as part of its Talking Book program. Write Listening, Box 10, Port Washington, New York, 11050, or call 516-883-8280. Thank you.
You don't know my friend Lori, but I think you'd like her. She's cute, she's nice, and she's got a great sense of humor. But the way some kids act, Lori might be from outer space, just because she has epilepsy.
If you have a distorted picture of kids with epilepsy, listen.
You know, epilepsy doesn't make Lori a creature from another planet. She's a regular kid, and really fun to be with. But some kids in our school won't give her a chance. Oh, they're polite, but they kind of avoid her. They won't sit next to her at lunch. They won't walk home with her. It's like they're afraid, just because she's got epilepsy. And that's really a shame, because epilepsy isn't scary if you know about it. I learned that from Lori. She told me what to do if she has a seizure, so now it's no big deal. Oh, epilepsy's serious stuff, all right. But it shouldn't send anybody into orbit.
Kids with epilepsy or any disability, let's count them in. Get the facts. Call Epilepsy Foundation of America, 1-800-332-1000.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Gil Gross. It is good to have you with us. We are talking... Oh, by the way, let me tell you real quick. We had last week Paul Brodeur on, who was the big expert, of course, on electromagnetic things and all of that, and the cellular phones causing cancer in your head and all of that stuff. It was an exciting hour. This was the guy who did the original reporting on much of that for the New Yorker over the years and has written many books about it, of course, like Currents of Death. Phones went off the hooks about it. Tomorrow, we've been trying to find somebody who would go up against him. We got a guy. And all heck will break with all the news about the phones and everything going on. You'll hold him over because it's tomorrow's show. So let me get back to what we're doing here. X-rated stores that basically are videos wall to wall that are opening up quite a bit, in part because a lot of the major chains like Blockbuster won't handle this material, and also because, hey, it's a recession. These guys take about 15 minutes to set up their racks and a cash register, and they can go to a landlord and say, hey, until you rent this place to something good, you don't even have to write me a lease. I'll be out the day you want me out. It's a very attractive deal for landlords. So they're popping up all over the country. Charles Millard, a member of the New York City Council who wants zoning to move these guys out of certain areas, is with me in the studio. Bill Margold, who is a director and actor in X-rated films for 23 years, is on the phone with me. And you're on the phone with me, too, at 1-800-456-1227. Before I go to your next call, Bill, I think you wanted to answer our previous caller.
Well, I think I was attempting to answer the woman she tends to attack the X-rated industry for all of the ills of society, as seemingly everybody else does. And she also made the mistake of mentioning Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy went to his death utilizing pornography as a whipping boy and a scapegoat, and fed Dobson, the man who exacted the confession from him, exactly what Dobson wanted to hear. When, in fact, Ted Bundy, he went off the deep end, propelled by what he had seen in detective magazines. And I know exactly the crimes that sent him over the brink had nothing to do with the adult entertainment industry or pornography in any way, shape, or form.
I think I don't really care so much about Ted Bundy as much as I care about all the people who aren't killing somebody, or maybe even aren't beating them or whipping them, but who have come to see. And this is not, I wouldn't censor against this, okay? We're just talking about what I think about the industry. People have begun to view themselves more and more and more as sexual objects. Now, I'm not talking about you should or shouldn't enjoy sex, but that someone is there for my gratification. And not just the porno industry, but all the advertisements that you were talking about a couple minutes ago glorify meaningless gratification in a way that I think takes out of society and out of people the values that really hold us together as human beings.
Well, that's very nice, and it's almost euphonic, but the thing you're talking about is a dehumanification of society in general. If you're going to lay that at pornography's doorstep, then you might as well lay the New York Yankees' troubles at their doorstep, the Giants' troubles, the Jets' troubles, and the Bills' troubles.
Well, the way the Bills were in the Super Bowl, maybe they'd have been better off making an X-rated video.
I think it's time to move on here. Let's go to Alan in Virginia Beach.
They screwed that game up.
Hey, how you doing, Gil?
I'm doing fine, Alan. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Hey, I have a couple of comments for y'all. First up, if we really want to get stringent on the X-rated movies and stuff like that, why don't you get with Hypatia Lee's husband? Now, Hypatia Lee's husband makes the movies while she stars in them.
Yes, she does. Yes, he does.
Okay.
Hypatia's a wonderful lady.
I mean,
sounds like a marriage made in heaven to me.
It is, because these people they're extremely tolerant of each other's needs. Hypatia is a superstar.
That's right. And in reference to the video stores, we used to have them down here in Virginia Beach till about 5 or 6 years ago, when the Bible Belt moved up a little bit more, and the Pat Robertson organization decided to go ahead and push that out of here, and they also took the Playboy Channel out of here.
Oh boy, beware of his insidious tidal wave.
I mean, and the only place where we can actually go and get the movies and rent the X-rated movies is to go across the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel into Hampton and Newport News and above there. I mean,
well, see, you're a perfect customer.
Up there and down in North Carolina.
You're a perfect customer for the adult entertainment industry, and that's why, in a strange way, I totally agree with Mr. Millard that I would prefer to have our industry, as I call it, the Garden of Eden surrounded by the Love Canal. I want you to come to us rather than us coming to you. We've made it way too easy for you to obtain the X-rated industry, and tragically, the X-rated industry has become common in its 20th year.
So what does this mean? Why is this? Hold it. We're trying to understand this. Why is this bad for you? Because it's leading to price cutting and stuff?
I always preferred to be unique. I always preferred the X-rated industry to be something that you had to come to be the misunderstood entertainment microcosm. Now, with the facility of being able to get the material, it's becoming tragically ordinary and dull.
Well,
and it doesn't really make us try as hard to make stuff good anymore.
You know, Madonna is herself single-handedly trying to make sex boring, which is something I didn't think was possible.
I haven't seen the book. Madonna.
But it's just so much of it. It's like that, and the Marky Mark Jeans ad, and when you get assaulted by it so much, and there's nothing special about it, and unfortunately, there's never anything sensual about it. After a while, it's become routine and boring.
Well, I'm saying that myself, and that's why I would prefer to be isolated into some form of adult Disneyland with a moat around us, alligators, landmines, machine guns, barbed wire, and make them
Bill,
come to us.
I'm learning more about your fantasy life than I want to know. Let's go to Marilyn in Florence, Kentucky. Hi, Marilyn.
Hello.
Hi.
Would like to ask if this bill has any daughters. And
that's a very famous question. I've been asked it many times.
And the answer?
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
and I'm going to answer your question before you ask it. Would I allow my daughter, when she turns 18 years old, to be in the adult entertainment industry?
No way. Let me say what I want to say.
Oh,
my
good.
teenage boys came in with one of the movies, and no way did I know they would even try to rent one. And the kid, when I went up about it, they said the kid probably had a fake ID, but he did not. He was a big kid, and he came home with this movie, and it showed the women, the men weren't up to sex, and it was this idea where women performed sex on the other girls.
Oh, what's wrong with that?
A girl chewing on another woman's vagina for 15-year-old boys to watch?
Well, but the thing is, I'm not talking about the 14-year-old boy watching it, but if these are adults doing adult acts between adults...
But she is talking about the 15-year-old boy watching it because earlier...
One of my sons.
Yeah, because earlier, Bill, you were talking about how the laws are strict and somebody under the age of 21 can't get a hold of this, and she's saying to you that her kid did.
If kids get false IDs, if kids are able to lie...
He did not have a false ID. He walked up to the counter and he got this...
well, then report him.
Pardon me?
Report the store.
Well,
what are you going to do? You're going to pluck your child's eyes out? Are you going to wash his mind out with soap? It's simply sex, ma'am. It isn't going to hurt you.
It is not sex when another woman chews on another woman's vagina.
I feel sorry, ma'am, that you never experienced that part of sex.
All right. Let's move. Marilyn, thank you for the call.
I'm a happy married woman.
And Marilyn, congratulations. I thank you for the call. All right.
I think Marilyn's point about that sexual act, I think, goes to what I was saying before. Again, I'm not here to censor what people do, but I do think that society suffers when we glorify that kind of meaningless gratification. People used to believe that sex and love and commitment and relationships and family, however defined, were the kinds of things that made a society strong. And now, that kind of gratification with no even hint of any meaning behind it has a lot to do with the deterioration in society today.
Yes, but you can't save society, sir. I'm sorry.
So you want to lead us down the path as fast as we can go?
I don't think I'm leading it down the path. I'm simply trying to entertain it. X is simply another letter in the entertainment alphabet. I am certainly not trying to turn society's mind off.
But
here's the whole thing, and be very, very careful. If you and your minions succeed in driving the X-rated industry underground, where it was born, if you remember, if you know the history of the X-rated industry, then the X-rated industry can do anything it wants to do. And that's very, very dangerous because these people have tried to conform to the current state of law, to the current community standard. And we have tried to adapt ourselves and are essentially censoring ourselves out of existence. So leave us alone, and we will succeed in committing entertainment suicide.
No, but you're saying leave us alone, and that's what everybody in all the neighborhoods are saying. You said that you think it's just the free market, and if there's a market for these places, then people will come. But the fact of the matter is, when someone lives next to a smokestack, the free market is working great because somebody is burning something or building something in that factory that somebody else wants to buy. But the guy who lives next door to it, who has to breathe it in, is suffering. And just like the family who says, I don't want to have to deal with my 14-year-old kid renting this stuff when I don't know about it, they're suffering because the market has secondary effects that they can't control.
Well, there's a freedom to organize a picket to do something to get rid of that store.
That's what we're doing.
Go right ahead.
Speaking of the free market economy, it's time for me to give the local stations a chance to get in on some of that. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you on The Gil Gross Show.
Is this on, Robert? Okay. Well, welcome to the Better Leadership Through Effective Communications Techniques seminar. I trust you've all enjoyed the Continental Breakfast / Getting to Know You session. Now, immediately following my opening welcome, you'll have the choice of 3 very exciting sessions. In the Pocahontas Ballroom, there's time management and time budgeting. In the Geronimo Room, there is redundancy reduction. And in the Sasquatch Room, there is stepping up effectiveness.
Employers try a lot of things to help their employees become more productive, but we'd like to remind you that the National Guard and Reserve teaches employees skills to be better team players, decision makers, and leaders. So when they need time off to train, be a hero. Give them the freedom to protect ours.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to go get one more of those French crullers before they're all gone. One with the sprinkles.
A public service message from employer support of the Guard and Reserve and the Ad Council.
It's sure not how I thought it was going to be. Some days I don't get anything to eat. I had a friend who died out here. I had to run away. We can't go home. Things were bad before, but this is worse. I just don't know where else to go.
Thousands of kids like Timmy run away to live on the streets. Covenant House helps these kids with food, clothing, a place to stay, or just someone to talk to. Call us on our 9 line, 1-800-999-9999. 24 hours a day, no questions asked. That's the Covenant House 9 line, 1-800, and keep dialing 9. It's free.
I never thought I'd end up like this.
This was a public service message from the Advertising Council. If you need help, call the 9 line.
1-800-999-9999.
We are back. Charles Millard, a member of the New York City Council, who, again, we should point out, isn't in favor of banning pornography, but he is in favor of zoning to move it out of certain areas. Bill Margold, who feels that is censorship, is director and actor in X-rated films for some 23 years. And you are all on the phone, and we are going to go to Rob in Salt Lake City. Hi, Rob.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I'd have to agree with Charles. I think that it should be regulated, and zoning would be a good thing. On the other hand, the gentleman that you have opposing his comments is disturbing in that I wonder why he doesn't. I'd like to know whether he thinks that X-rated films have a detrimental effect on society.
No, I do not.
And why is that?
Well, but again, I think I already stated it. The only way an X-rated film is going to really harm you is if it bore you to death. It's another film, sir. It's simply another form of entertainment. If you don't want it, turn it off. I've never seen an adult videotape jump down off a shelf, grab a person, lead him home, force his eyes open with toothpicks, and make him watch the tape.
Although that story has been told to a number of wives in the country.
Yes, I've been listening to that. And the other thing, the question I have, though, is what about the people that aren't as sophisticated as maybe you and Charles are and certain other members of the audience that wouldn't have a clue, namely the 18-year-old kid that has, wants to get his jollies. And in fact, I think there was a show on 2020 last week, and speaking specifically to that issue, what X-rated films have on the adolescent or late adolescent mind.
Well, see, the thing is, again, here we go preying and preying and preying on the poor, benighted children when it all really belongs in the home in the first place. And that home, the family structure, doesn't really exist anymore because parents don't have time for their kids, so they blame the problems that their kids have on the X-rated industry. And you mentioned an interesting terminology, which was jollies. Are you begrudging people masturbation?
Oh, well, that's an interesting comment. I'm interested. It's interesting that you would use such a shocking comment like that when clearly your position is not one on solid ground.
Well, no.
I would also like to add
you use
I fully support Charles, and I'll continue to listen to you, Gil.
Okay.
And I appreciate your time.
Rob, I thank you for calling. And before we...
Very courteous man, but what was he talking about jollies and then backs down when he got caught in his own rhetoric?
He doesn't like this.
He doesn't.
Well, he doesn't like this, and he feels he has the right not to like it.
The wonderful thing about radio is a lot of the people who call up and attack what this business is all about of course, are people who watch this, but they want to hear themselves on the radio.
Oh, no, give our callers more credit than that. We've had people on both sides, and give our callers more credit than that. Let me go to Joan in Montgomery, Alabama. Hi, Joan.
Hi. Excuse me, but I'm going to be a little nervous. First time I've ever called in.
A virgin.
I said, excuse me, this is the first time I have ever called in.
That was Bill talking. This is Gil talking now, and I welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much. Well, I hate pornography, and I'll tell you why. I'm a victim of pornography. I was raped 15 years ago, and I was just a child at that time.
Back in about 10 minutes. This is the problem. It doesn't work.
So what is your comment on it? What are you going to do for me? I'm in prison for life.
Bill, did you hear that?
Well, I had to go to the door. I hear she's a victim of pornography.
She was raped, and she blames it in part on pornography.
Well, now that's ridiculous. You know, rape is an act of violence. It's not an act of sex. It has nothing to do with the X-rated industry.
But what it motivated my attacker.
Well,
Bill, you keep saying. Wait, Bill, you keep saying that there's nothing to do with it. I think you're overselling that point. The fact is that repeatedly, people who are convicted of rape are found to have had a lot of pornographic material in their home. Now, I'm not trying to oversell the flip side. I'm not trying to say everybody who buys pornography is going to go out and rape somebody. But the fact is that there are lots of act-out crimes where people see some scenario in a video and go out and do the same thing. So I think you're overselling the point.
I'm not minimizing the act of rape, but what I will tell you about the serial killers and the serial rapists is if you go into their rooms, you will also find, besides pornography, perhaps a TV guide and perhaps a Holy Bible. So which really sent them off the deep end? Why is it always pornography? Why is always pornography the whipping boy?
Let me ask Joan, because it sounds like something came out at the trial, or you have some knowledge of what happened with this particular individual. Is that the case?
I was on my way home from school and was picked up by a 30-year-old man, forcibly taken, and I was taken to his apartment. And as he committed the act of rape, he said, "Oh, well, wait a minute. Let me put on my favorite tape."
Yes.
Well, Bill,
so that's an example.
It wasn't Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Well, what was it? Do you remember the title?
I have no
She
idea.
doesn't have to remember the title at a moment like that, Bill. Come on.
This sounds highly...
Come on.
Wait just a minute.
It really sounds highly specious because these type of people come popping out of the woodwork and then go immediately back into the woodwork. I did a talk show in Boston where they had all these women on who said that they were forced to perform sexual acts at gunpoint because this is what they saw on the tapes. And I don't have any tapes in my business that have people forcing guns down people's throats.
Well, maybe not in your business, but there are other people out there.
Well, you know, you're also...
pornography.
There's a lot of different tapes on the market that have nothing to do, or on the underground market, that have nothing to do with the mainstream adult market. The underground aspect of the X-rated industry is something that I'm vehemently opposed to as well. We simply represent...
Why, do you find it morally offensive, Bill?
I find it morally offensive to use kids. I find it morally offensive to use animals. And I find it morally offensive to use aberrant violence, which means having sex and violence at the same time, because that is something that leaves scars not only on the body but also on the mind.
All right, I've got to take a break. Joan, thank you for the call. I know that this isn't a pleasant thing for you to talk about, and I thank you for calling.
Thank you so much for letting me have my say.
Okay, take care. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you after I remind you. Man, this is... It's just such a strange switch here from talking about this adult stuff to remind you that the Gil Gross Show is sponsored in part by Flintstones Vitamins.
We're Flintstones kids. Tommy, did you take Moose for his walk?
I guess so.
You guess so?
Yeah, I'm never sure whether I'm taking him or he's taking me.
Well, keep eating right and taking Flintstones vitamins, and soon you'll be a bigger influence on Moose.
Flintstones, complete with the vitamins and minerals kids need and the great taste they love.
10 million strong. Hear that, Moose? I'm going to be somebody you can look up to. And growing.
He would break down and cry because the kids would make fun of him when he was asked to read orally. It was really horrible to watch.
This is Sandy Duncan with a Sylvan success story every parent should hear.
He's been gone about 6 months to Sylvan, and the progress has just been tremendous.
That was the first time I ever made the honor roll.
I made my parents proud.
Sylvan Learning Center can boost your child's grades and self-esteem. So call your local center now, 1-800-EDUCATE. That's 1-800-EDUCATE.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Mario Perillo and Alitalia announced 2 brand new tours. The spectacular 3 capitals to London, Paris, and Rome, and the fantastic Spain and Italy tour. You'll never forget the magic of London, Paris, and Rome, the thrill of the Tower of London, the Eiffel Tower, and the Colosseum in one all-inclusive tour. Or the combined fascination of Spain and Italy to Madrid, Barcelona, Venice, Florence, and Rome. Mario takes care of everything while you enjoy the romance of England, France, Spain, and Italy. Yes, Perillo's new 3 capitals or Spain and Italy tour. So good that to get space, you've got to really, really, really hurry. Perillo since 1945. The best to Italy, Europe, Hawaii, and the Bahamas. For a free Perillo brochure, see your travel agent or call 1-800-238-7000. That's 1-800-238-7000 now.
Who will be the real heroes?
As a kid, I think, as most kids do, we sniped quarters or nickels or pennies from him. And anytime I did, I was guilt-ridden because his example of honesty would always haunt me. I got back to see my stepfather before he died, and I told him just how important his example was to me in my life and growing up. He got tears in his eyes, and I did too, and I wanted him to know that I really loved him, and he was the example of my life.
And in our hearts, somewhere, forever, all the real heroes live.
The important lessons in life are learned at home. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
You may patiently wait for your prince to come, but the key to getting your prince, Spot, Rex, or Fido to come when you call is to teach it to come when you call. Now, an 8-week-old puppy will follow on the heels of just about any kind-hearted, warm-blooded animal that pays attention to it. A puppy will follow you because it wants to, not because you want it to. When the puppy matures in 6 to 9 months and develops other interests, it's going to take off in the direction of any good-centered diversion, no matter what you say. And just hollering the dog's name over and over again till it wanders your way is not training. Now, the American Humane Association encourages you to call your local animal shelter for information on obedience training in your area so that someday your prince will come. And remember, keep a current identification tag on your pet. That tag could be his ticket home. The American Humane Association. They've been protecting animals and children for more than 115 years. Thank you for being with us this hour. Charles Millard of the New York City Council has been with us. Bill Margold, who's a director and actor in X-rated films for some 23 years. And, Bill, I only got 30 seconds, but your point, again, is if you leave it alone, the industry's going to fall apart?
I think it'll just simply go away because it'll be allowed to literally become more of a quantitative rather than qualitative industry, and society will find another fad.
Okay, and Charles Millard?
You can't censor it even if you think it's wrong. We ought to, as a society, learn to get away from it. But you can zone it out so it doesn't ruin our
Why
neighborhoods.
don't you zone it onto the Statue of Liberty Island? That'd be fitting.
On that, now I don't want anybody looking up her skirts now. Let's close this hour where we are. I'm Gil Gross, and I'll be talking to you. Hey, how you doing? I'm Gil Gross. It is good to have you with us tonight. Got an interesting thing to talk about with you this hour that probably affects your neighborhood. And you're probably not all that choked up about it. Or maybe you are. Actually, it all depends. We'll get into that in a second. I'll explain what I'm talking about. First, there's a couple of things on the desk I want to get off the desk because I'm tired of looking at these faces. You got a desk and you got George Steinbrenner and Harry Connick Jr. staring at you, man. You want to clean off that desk as soon as possible. So who should we do first here? Steinbrenner? Steinbrenner. And this has nothing to do with the New York Yankees or sports. It has to do with the fact that, as you know, Congress and I aren't friends. We're not on speaking terms at the moment. So while they're looking for cuts in the congressional budget and the federal budget, you know what happened here? You know George Steinbrenner, you know where he made his money? In a shipyard. He built ships for a living. That's where Steinbrenner made the money to buy the New York Yankees, American Shipbuilding. So while they were saying, that there's not enough money in the budget and they have to raise our taxes, I know this is like a minor amount, but still, it gives you an idea of how Washington's really run. George Steinbrenner's shipbuilding company, which according to congressional investigators, screwed up on federal contracts and then tried to charge the federal government for it. His company had the gall to go to Congress and say, well, you should pay us the money for us screwing up. For example, welders at his shipbuilding company accidentally cut into electrical cables, requiring the cables to be repaired and causing a fire on one ship. Okay? Steinbrenner goes to Congress, lays out $16,500 in political contributions, and lo and behold, kids, in the federal budget is $58 million to bail out Steinbrenner's shipbuilding business for their screw-ups. They screwed up. We're paying for it. Congressman John Murtha, Democrat of Pennsylvania, Senator Daniel Inouye, Democrat of Hawaii, and the chairman of the House and Senate Appropriation Defense Subcommittees, $16,500 worth of... Man, what a bargain. Can you imagine being able to buy $58 million for just $16,500? That's great. I'd make that deal. And what kind of return is that? Somebody figured that out in your calculator. You give $16,500 to a congressman and a senator, and you get back $58 million. I like that. So that's the Steinbrenner story. And then very quickly, the Harry Connick Jr. story. This happened in New York City. Harry Connick Jr., apparently for the second time, went to Kennedy Airport with a gun in his carry-on luggage. Apparently he did this a year ago, and the incident was hushed up. So he did it again, 9mm. By the way, this guy's dad's an attorney general. So you think, a district attorney, I mean, in Louisiana. So you think he knows better. So he goes to the airport, he gets caught. And just in case you think the rich aren't different from you and me, you know what they had him do? All right, you or I go to the airport, I got a 9mm in my carry-on. Do you think I at least pay a fine? Probably. Do a little time? Probably. Harry gets to do a public service announcement. I mean, come on. I mean, if a 17-year-old kid who did that would have to do 5 days in jail or whatever, this guy should be doing 5 days in jail. He shouldn't get off with being more famous and looking like a good guy doing a public service announcement. I mean, it's wrong. It's just wrong. Anyway, that's it. That's my... never mind the fact that album he cut when he was 11 years old shouldn't even be on the market. It's embarrassing. All right, that's it. Okay, let's get down. I know I get ticked off of the strangest things, but there you go. Let's get speaking of getting ticked off. Let's talk about what's going on in your neighborhood. The porno explosion. Remember the good old days of pornography theaters? No, I said it right. The good old days of pornography theaters. Handful of dirty old men in raincoats that looked like something. The raincoats looked like something Columbo had given to the homeless, would show up in sunglasses on even the darkest of days. When the film was over, they didn't hang around the neighborhood because they didn't want their boss or their employees to see them. So they fled the area as quick as possible. Those were the good old days. Video explosion comes. The theaters go away. And because of the video explosion, where people can buy a video once and watch it in the privacy of their own home as often as they wish without fear of being seen or fear of catching whatever the heavy-breathing guy in the seat next to them might have had, the theaters go away. The only problem is, the catch is, X-rated video stores are opening up in residential neighborhoods all across America. Everywhere. Whereas the X-rated theaters used to be like, downtown and all that kind of stuff. Now, these things are all over the place. And not just like because stores like Blockbuster won't carry X-rated videos. So you're getting stores that are doing nothing but X-rated videos now because the major chains won't carry them at all. And they're opening up all over the place in residential neighborhoods, and parents are going nuts about this. And look, it's a recession, and landlords will take a check from anybody whose check doesn't bounce. So that's what's going on around the country. I got two people to talk with you about this who have some differing opinions about it. Charles Millard is in the studio with me. Charles Millard is a member of the City Council of the City of New York. Charles, welcome.
Thanks very much, Carl.
Good to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
Gil. And Bill Margold is on the phone. He is director and actor in X-rated films for 23 years and a former probation officer?
Among other things.
Okay. Let me start with Charles, because he really brought this up by writing an op-ed piece in the New York Times
about
it.
Carl.
Carl Millard, one of my close dear friends. Obviously, we're meeting for the first time. That was called "Stop the Porn Explosion." What's the problem here? Is it pretty much as I said? These places are open up all
I think
around?
you put your finger right on it. There's a couple of things. I mean, AIDS causes people to want to have safe sex. Solo sex with a video at home is a form of safe sex. It's not just the stores either. It's also an explosion of topless and bottomless dancing establishments. That's one problem. The other problem is the recession. And the other factor is that way more people than used to own VCRs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there are a lot of people who think that no one should ever be able to have pornographic material. But there are a lot of people who say, I don't want my 14-year-old maybe going in there and renting this stuff when I'm not looking because I want to have some say over of their upbringing. And there are people who say, I don't want my, whether it's 4-year-old or 14-year-old, looking at signs, advertising movies like Edward Penis Hands. Am I allowed to say that?
Which is, well, you just did. It's a part of the body, and let's face it, this is going to be an adult discussion about an adult subject, and as long as it doesn't get stupid, sure. The problem, I guess, also, and Bill, bring you into this in just a second, is that the stores generally used to be people. It's funny. I never thought that people in neighborhoods would long for the good old days of the guy who would sell these things in the back of the candy store in the back room. Right?
Well,
it wasn't in sight. And now they all have like flashing lights.
Right. And if the video stores would sell them in the back room, a lot of people wouldn't care. It's the flashing lights, it's the big signs, it's the very lurid detail in the explanations of the movies and in the pictures.
Okay, Bill's groaning. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, all of this is well and good, but it's what's called free enterprise. The other situation is simply this. In a strange way, I side with Mr. Millard, and I would like a zoning situation enacted because I've always felt that it's much better for the public to come to us rather than us to go to the public. I think by making us more of the resistible item of putting the carrot, so to speak, in front of the jackass that is society, you're bound to get, for lack of a better terminology, more profit. What Mr. Millard doesn't realize is that by the supposed oversaturation of these stores, we're enacting the elimination of these stores. They're slitting each other's throats in volume. The videos themselves have become a quantitative rather than a qualitative industry. And as I told the Meese Commission back in 1985, if you leave the X-rated industry alone, it will go away. But what Mr. Millard is doing in his own way is practicing a form of censorship, and that's dangerous. Now, he may not think it's censorship, but it certainly is. And his situation of suggesting that children will be affected by this is ridiculous because there are no categorical studies of it. Essentially, he should be sticking to more important items, such as I've always put it, in a society that is drug-infested, violence-racked, and polluted by chemical greed, no one has ever died from an overdose of pornography.
Well, you've given me some fodder to respond to, if I may, Gil.
Go.
First of all, you mentioned the free market. A lot of people have gone into these stores and said to me, gee, it seems like no one's shopping here. And if you testified for the Meese Commission, you may have read their report, which indicates very clearly that there is an overwhelming influence of organized crime in the pornography industry. And that influence, I don't know that I see it in stores that open up in neighborhoods but do no business, but it certainly is a genuine influence. Additionally, saying that it's censorship really misses the point. Zoning is specifically not censorship, and the Supreme, people say, well, I believe in the First Amendment, I believe in free expression, therefore I would never oppose these things even if I find them offensive. The fact of the matter is the Supreme Court itself has said that the First Amendment definitely permits using zoning to regulate these places. And the reason you can do it is not because you can go after the content. You can't say, I don't like what they're saying or doing. You can say, I don't like the secondary effects. Let me just make this one last point.
Okay.
And Bill says, well, we should be worrying about violence in our society. One of the things you can regulate is the increased crime and prostitution that results. And we shouldn't be surprised when we see these kinds of videos that glorify violence against women, that we end up with prostitution and more crime.
The thing about nobody in the stores, I got to clear something up here because the rest of us are kind of sitting here who've never testified before the Meese Commission going, huh? Is it the theory then that these are fronts for organized crime then?
That would be the theory in what I said.
They're laundering money through the accounts and
but
stuff?
There are other ways that organized crime is involved as well, but that was the point that I was making.
Well, that's a wonderful point, but this thing about the X-rated industry riddled with violence against women is ridiculous because that has been essentially censored out by the X-rated industry since 1975. When I was in front of the Meese Commission, they continually brought up examples, and I continually refuted their examples by pointing out that those tapes had been made 10 years before I got there.
All right,
Not
tell you what,
that.
I got to take a break here. There's going to be plenty of time for both of you to get your viewpoints on this. Of course, I want our listeners to talk about it because these places are opening up in a lot of neighborhoods. For some people, they may say, hey, this is a blessing because I like to watch this stuff in the privacy of my own home, and I want this near. For other people, of course, are going to call, and they're going to be the kind of people who have been picketing some of these places. So let's open up the phones at 1-800-456-1227, 1-800-456-1227. And I guess the question is, do you want an X-rated video store in your neighborhood? Does it bother you or does it not bother you? Or are you happy it's there? Let's take a quick break and listen to some fine announcements, and then we'll come right back with you on The Gil Gross Show.
In the Algebra 1, I was getting like D's and F's. Like I was the only one that didn't know what I was doing.
This is Sandy Duncan with a Sylvan success story every parent should hear.
A mother knows her child, and I know Amelia could do it.
Bringing home my first great report card was excellent. I finally did something right.
Sylvan is the answer. I've seen it work.
Sylvan Learning Center can boost your child's grades and self-esteem. So call your local center now, 1-800-EDUCATE. That's 1-800-EDUCATE.
Any nasal spray can clear up congestion.
I feel great.
But unfortunately, some of them only last 4 hours.
Oh, I don't feel so great.
That's why there's Duration Nasal Spray. Duration gives you fast relief from congestion that lasts and lasts for up to 12 full hours of free breathing. So next time colds or flu get the best of you, get Duration Nasal Spray for long-lasting relief that makes you feel, well...
great.
Duration Nasal Spray. For long-lasting relief. Use only as directed.
Would you buy a pair of shoes without trying them on? A car without driving it? Then why buy a vacuum on blind faith? Hi, I'm David Orrick, maker of the 8-pound Orrick XL Hotel Vac. And if you call the factory, 1-800-989-4200, you can try out my legendary Hotel Vac in your home, absolutely free for 15 days with no obligation. The best part is it weighs only 8 pounds, yet it outcleans vacuums weighing 40 pounds. Try before you buy. Call 1-800-989-4200.
The date. You and your date have just finished a pepperoni and anchovy pizza, and your breath isn't a little wild. It's really wild. Don't get upset. Get Clorettes. For over 40 years, no other breath freshener's been more effective than Clorettes. So just pop a couple in and relax. Your breath will be out of the jungle in no time. When your breath's really wild, get Clorettes in both gum and mints.
Live your life
the healthy way. Give your body a break. Eat right today. Good nutrition helps you feel okay when you eat your way to good health. Don't forget your fruits, cause they're good for you. Your veggies will keep you feeling brand new. Eat whole grain breads, it's a thing to do. To eat your way to good health. Fruits, here's what you should know. Perfect for snacks when you're on the go. Munch a bunch of bananas, try a peach or a pear. You can buy on a bread muffin anywhere. Vegetables, now here's the scoop. Frozen or fresh in a salad or soup. Stir-fry veggies can be a real treat. Saute or steam them, you don't have to repeat. Eat your fruit, your veggies, and your grains today. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Eat your way to good health, Eat your way to good health.
This message brought to you by this station and the National Cancer Institute.
Today is a lot like yesterday. Business as usual, people hurrying around. Most of us in too much of a hurry to concern ourselves with old people who don't want to live, the homeless who are struggling to live, teen pregnancies, AIDS, illiteracy, drugs. Oh, it's overwhelming. It all seems so hopeless. But it's not. Well, not if everyone did just one thing, because that means millions of things, and that's how it'll get done. But it begins with you. It begins with you not saying, if I don't do it, someone else will. So you talk to someone who is lonely. Help clean up a neighborhood park. Report crimes. You can be one of the little answers to the big problems facing every community in America. And because there are more people than problems, things will get done. All you have to do is something. Anything. Now, to find out how, call the Points of Light Foundation at 1-800-677-7309. Do something good. Feel something real. A public service message from the Points of Light Foundation and the Ad Council. I'm Gil Gross. Welcome back. We are talking about the X-rated video stores in your neighborhood that have been opening up across the country. Charles Millard is with me as a member of the New York City Council. On the phone with us, Bill Margold. Bill Margold is a director and actor in X-rated films for 2 decades.
Over 2 decades.
And we've got calls at 1-800-456-1227, and let's go right to it. We'll start with Tracy in Hampton, Virginia. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Gil.
How you doing?
Good, good. I just had a comment, a couple of points. First of all, with pornography, I think that, first of all, it's a person's choice whether they want to rent the videos or not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, I have rented a few of them, and when I go into the stores, and this is in, Hampton here, you've got to be 21 years of age or you're not getting into there. So, as far as kids getting hold of these videos, I don't see where that, where it's possible.
Well, it probably depends. I mean, you guys can tell me, but I mean, kids get cigarettes, kids get booze.
Well,
you send the older kid to go in there, or if the guy sees somebody with $5 in their hand, he doesn't particularly care.
No, there's very stipulative laws that eliminate children from adult stores per se. Also, in most...
Yeah, but there's very stipulative laws that say a kid can't buy beer till he's 21. And give me a break on that one.
And the point that was made earlier about this being a business is, if the kid's there with the money and the guy's trying to make a buck and you're talking about the market, why is he not going to do it?
Good, but you have to remember that first of all, kids are not even allowed in the mainstream adult video stores. In the mom and pop stores, the stores that have major titles, legitimate titles, as well as their cordoned off area, it says adults only. It says there's usually a curtain. There's usually a back room, something that you all seem to want to go back to.
Right, but that doesn't address...
They're not entered into by children. Now, interestingly enough, there was a woman who said that she's even offended by the back room because she then has to excoriate her child for daring to even think about going into the back room. I don't usually use somebody else's quote, but I'm looking at the calendar I put out this year, and the first one is, pornography is not in the hands of the child who discovers his sexuality by masturbating, but in the hands of the adult who slaps him. And I honestly believe that, Mr. Millard, you are attempting to slap the children of the world.
How can I be... A minute ago you said it's perfectly okay to keep them out. We have age regulations. That's a good thing. and then you're telling me that I'm
Yes, but
slapping
here's
the
the
world
thing.
because I'm saying we shouldn't have kids seeing it.
No, but I don't believe we should either. But the thing is, by constantly using children as the battering ram, which is exactly the reason that the Meese Commission came into use, the X-rated industry has absolutely nothing to do with child pornography. I represent the adult entertainment community. No children, no animals, no aberrant violence. But constantly, the only thing...
No aberrant violence.
Aberrant violence, which means...
What kind of violence do you have?
That means sex and violence at the same time.
I got to agree with Gil.
You got to agree with Gil about what?
With me, I haven't said anything for about a minute here.
Oh, well, the other guy then.
You like Bill Margold.
Yeah.
You know, my problem with these places is, I mean, I'm all for free speech and everything. My problem with these places, I've seen them start to pop up around the country is, and let's face it, Bill, I'm not sure that they class up your industry any. They ain't subtle. You know, they're not classy and they ain't subtle, and they've got like they take the front of the whatever you call the cardboard packaging that holds the video.
It's called a box.
Yeah, they put the front of the box with the picture in the window, and then there's all these bright garish lights. I mean, they don't exactly make themselves neighborhood friendly. They're not.
Or bigger. There's two that opened up on 53rd Street in my area, 25 yards away from one another on the very same block, one of which has, you know, the usual X-rated movie theater kind of practically marquee-sized pictures
Well, that's
with women
advertising.
falling out of their clothes.
That's free enterprise. Falling out of their clothes, you can look in any type of advertisement in major magazines nowadays, on billboards advertising jeans. We deal in a sexual generation. We use skin to sell.
Hey,
Look at your advertisements for basketball. These people are playing without shirts on nowadays. And we're dealing in a flesh-oriented market. The X-rated industry is for adults only.
But it's not for adults only if that flesh market is being put out on the sidewalks where I'm walking my kid to school.
Let me get the listeners get a word in edgewise here because the show's for them too. Linda in Orem, Utah. Hi, Linda.
This is the first time I've listened to your show, but I just am disgusted to think that these things would come into our communities. We do not have them in our community. I hope we never have them. We have fought them. And you say that children are not the victims. They are the victims. The wives and families are the victims. Where do you think Ted Bundy, especially in the Utah, and some of these other pedophiles, get their fantasies? I can't even go to a hotel convention.
Ted Bundy wasn't a pedophile.
I cannot go to a hotel convention center and turn on my TV unless I pay to have it blocked out. I found that happened this summer at a Key Club convention. It was the most disgusting thing. I didn't even know it was there. It affected me. And you talk about us
It affected you?
to sell. You talk about skin to sell. Our whole society has become that way. Why do you think we have all of the problems we have?
Well, don't blame it on pornography.
Oh, okay. Let me let all of you get a chance to answer that. I got to take a break here. We'll be right back with you on the other side of this on the Gil Gross Show.
Plant a tree for your tomorrow. It's your tree that